Hey, beautiful people, welcome back. So, I got a lot of positive feedback from my last video where I did a pot and craft. So, I wanted to do it again for you guys. So, if you are interested in seeing how I make these, stay tuned. What's going on, beautiful people? We are back with another episode of A Spoonieful. So, today, I want to talk to you guys about summer. I mean, it is summer. And I knew it was summer, but I was reminded this week because when I went to work, we had a fire drill and it just came back to me like a ton of bricks. Like, yeah, it's summer, it's hot, and this is an issue. Like, is it hot out here? I don't know if you guys know that Janae Aiko burst. She's like, is it hot in here or is it just me? That was me this week standing out there in that fire drill, and it seemed like it took them forever to clear the building for us to be able to make it back in. But neither here nor there. That's what I'm talking about today. Summer. So most people love summer because it means cookouts, crabs, amusement parks, vacations, day parties, etc., etc. I mean, like, what's not to love? But now that I've experienced living with MG, it's a lot for me not to love in summer. I think it's interesting for those, with the blossoming social life, and especially after coming off of COVID. Everybody wants to be out in the streets. It's lit, as the kids say. I'm still kind of hip, y'all. But, every weekend there's something to do, except if you have MG or any chronic illness in general. If you're still immune suppressed or compromised with a chronic illness and not vaccinated, then this summer just probably isn't for you. you know and it just really just got me thinking about my journey so far with like MG and summers, because it definitely has been a transition. Even as a child, I was never a fan of being hot, but I always managed to offset feeling like I was in Lucifer's armpit by doing things like dressing lightly or cooling activities like swimming and just lots of AC. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you guys know I am a Coke Slurpee enthusiast. Yes, that's my official title. Self-appointed, of course. But needless to say that my MG and it's when I was on it, prednisone, amplified my disdain for the heat and also made it very difficult for me to take advantage of, a great summer. This I talked last week about Vax and Wax, but like the greatness that summer can particularly hold, because I just feel like I'm burning up. The summer before I was diagnosed with MG, I've talked about it several times. I was killing it. YOLO was my motto. If you guys don't remember that from 5 years ago, whoo, showing my age. But anyway, it was nothing for me to just wake up and be like, hey, I want to go to the beach today and do it. I was going to comedy shows and different events in the city. I went to like multi-day music festivals and, flourished and danced with strangers. I was hosting get-togethers at my house with friends. And I even did a little wipeout 5K challenge. It was hot there too. Like, that water was warm, but it was fun. That was hands down the best summer of my adult life, I would say. But if I fast forward to, the summer after I was diagnosed, if I could give a one-word summary, struggle. Well, two-word summary, struggle bus. As someone with MG, the heat and the sun are like my kryptonite. And I don't know how many other chronic illnesses have heat triggers, but I know for an MGer, it is like deafening. And that was a lesson that I've learned the hard way, because I've told you guys immediately after my diagnosis, I went to Orlando for a week with my family and was completely miserable. I wake up in the mornings feeling so, had maybe like 2 to 3 hours, and then I was done. With each step, my limbs just felt heavier and heavier. My eyes drooped more and more, and out of it. But I still tried to push myself because at that stage in my journey, I was still rather in denial about my diagnosis as well as the implications. And I definitely didn't want to ruin the vacation for everyone else. So I did my best to suck it up. And then you would have thought that the family vacation would have been enough. But no, I took my talents to Philly for the Roots Festival, and it was a little mini Beyonce concert, both of which were outside events. And in short, I was, you guessed it, miserable. I know, shocker. I barely ate the entire weekend. I felt weak, even though I was taking my medications, but I was just pushing myself and putting myself in situations and environments that weren't conducive to my healing. My body was telling me, girl, stop. But did I listen? No, because the week after that, I actually went to Atlantic City for my best friend's bachelorette party, of which I was the organizer and coordinator. So I definitely didn't want to damper the fun there. And I definitely had to show up and be good face. And event planning in general can be exhausting and stressful. And things definitely weren't perfect, but I did the best I could considering, I'm only one person. I was dealing with an illness and just a lot of things stacked up against me. But, you know, boom, I pushed through. And then a few weeks later, I was a bridesmaid at said wedding, which was outdoors, you know. And due to the growing severity of my symptoms, like those days leading up to the wedding, I started my IVIG treatments. I don't know if you guys are familiar with IVIG, but basically it's intravenous immunoglobulin, and they basically inject um, fluids into your bloodstream, which is supposed to kind of like flush out some of those wonky cells that are in your body that is being attacked and replace it with good ones. And yeah, that's a whole thing. And I actually have talked about IVIG on my blog. If you guys are interested in learning more about IVIG and if it's a good treatment for you, then make sure you head on over there. But anyway, those treatments left me with headaches, nausea, fatigue. Like I just was miserable again. But my doctor did urge me not to do anything else while my body was adjusting to the treatments. However, I felt this responsibility and this obligation to show up once again. I even delayed one of my treatments that was scheduled the morning of the wedding. And the night before the wedding, I remember being in so much pain and discomfort that I made like a little pallet in the bathroom floor. And that's where I laid praying and crying that I would be able to make it through the festivities the next day, because the last thing I wanted to do was pass out or vomit during a ceremony or reception, or just make someone else's day about me because of the illness that I was going through. Thankfully, and then my prayers were answered, and boom, it was all good. However, it was all good until the following weekend when I decided to travel into DC. I'm in the DC area. I went into the city and watched fireworks, and I felt sick. Like I felt sick that entire day. And I just went ahead and sucked it up and drove myself to the ER on the 5th. And I wasn't released from the hospital until the 9th, you guys. And that was my first time being in the hospital for an extended stay for my IG, but definitely not my last. When I was admitted, you guys, I was barely coherent. So I definitely wasn't able to give them all the necessary information that I had. MG, and that there's a list of medications that I shouldn't be having, or anything like that, because I barely made it. Like, I wish you guys could see my fingers because I barely made it. So yeah, I wasn't able to give them the blacklist of medication you're not supposed to give, and of course they gave me some of those medications. So boom, that was something else stacked against me. And I'm not sure how many of you have ever spent an extended amount of time in the hospital. But if you haven't, consider yourself extremely lucky and blessed, because it is not fun. You don't really get any rest because they're always coming in, testing you, poking you, prodding you, and it's not comfortable. The bed isn't comfortable. It's like a little cot that you would get like a toddler at daycare. I just wasn't happy, And I had a lot of time to think, or maybe I was hallucinating. But, I replayed the events that led up to that moment about, how my stubbornness to do what I felt like I should be doing, or not listening to my body or taking heed to some of the changes that needed to be made, landed me in a hospital bed with wires, IVs, and tubes sticking out of me. Having to admit that my mom was right, I hate it when that happens, made me cringe, because she definitely was telling me I shouldn't be doing this and I shouldn't be doing that. But when there's something that you want to do, you're like, Mom, shut up. You don't know anything. I shouldn't have been going nonstop like that, but I was just so focused on not letting this diagnosis slow me down that it stopped me dead in my tracks. So when you have a chronic illness, I think it's important that you plan to do nothing in the summer anyway. At least that's my plan. I'm planning to do nothing. Like, I don't really have anything on my schedule. Couple of events here or there. Like, a lot of my friends' birthdays are in the summer. However, they know my state and they know how I flow. And if there's certain events that are happening, I probably won't be there if it's outdoors or if it's before the sun goes down, different things of that nature. And I used to view doing nothing as being lazy, but now I view it as a place of solace and restoration. It's a part of my treatment plan, self-care. And on the chances that I do decide to do something, it's weeks before I decide to do something else, because I schedule in plenty of rest. you know don't get me wrong, because I do have my days where I suffer with FOMO, fear of missing out, but now it's JOMO. I replace FOMO with JOMO, the joy of missing out, the joy of saying, hey, I can't make it because I'm taking care of me. And that brings me so much peace and so much joy. But at the end of the day, we're all human. Sometimes we do want to get out the house because you spend so much time in the house, especially after this year we've had of being in COVID, and you see all your friends out having fun and living it up. And it might stir up some feelings of resentment toward yourself for having an illness. But then, like I talked about last week, what's the worst that could happen? I reflect on what my worst was. That was my worst summer. And to me, it's just not worth it. I'm thankful that I am in such a better place. And why would I ever want to do anything to jeopardize my progress and send me back to that place? So being able to recognize your limitations, or not limitations, but your adjustments that need to be made, because we are never limited in anything. Like, people with chronic illness can do so many things, and I don't want you to think that you're limited in your abilities. We just have to change the way we go about them, and being able to recognize that and accept that and make the necessary adjustments is a sign of growth. And I'm super proud of myself, for being able to do this. I'm definitely not a hermit. If I was going to label it, I would just say I'm selectively social. I'm not going to be at everything, but that's okay. That's okay for me, anxiety level wise, because some people have social anxiety. It's okay for me, health wise and physically. I'm not putting too much on myself, and I'm at peace with where I am. So can anybody else relate? I really want to know what you guys have planned for this summer and how you guys are mitigating, or what things you have put into place to kind of do the things that you want to do without putting yourself or your health in jeopardy. Okay, so now I want to kind of give you guys some tips for slaying summers. This specifically works for me with MG, but again, if you are someone with a chronic illness that has heat triggers, I believe that you can apply it as well. So after that first summer, I will say that the rest of my summer experiences have been mostly positive. And while I would like to say it is the result of being in remission, the reality is I did just research and a lot of trial and error to figure out what works for me and gives me the most flexibility to do the things that I want to do. And again, like I said, all it takes is a little adjustment, effort, and a little bit of investment, financially for some of these things. So number one, water. So on average, I drink about, at minimum, 3 liters of water a day. Most days I go up to a gallon. It's just whatever container I have with me. And if I'm not in the house, I keep the water with me. My favorite water is Deer Park. However, I've recently started transitioning into more alkaline waters, and I like some of them. I definitely like, who was that brand that I really, really loved? Dang, I forgot. Now I gotta do a blog post about water brands and alkaline waters. But I do like Core. I do like Deer Park. I will drink Essentia, not Essentia, Life Water. So get your water importance. Deer Park isn't sold everywhere, which I didn't know until I started traveling. So when I do travel, I just drink enough of whatever their local spring water is just to keep me from getting dehydrated. However, drinking water helps to keep you cool and regulate body temperature. So if you're going to be outside, I'm going to need you guys to go ahead and get in those extra ounces of water, like 8 cups of 8 ounces, 64 ounces. That is nothing. I did a blog post about how much water you should be drinking, and there are varying rules. But most people, the bottom bare minimum is 64 ounces. Other people say drink half your body weight in ounces, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Next is something that I found to be interesting or fun, a cooling vest. So I went to Vegas a couple of years ago. Yeah, so it was after diagnosis. And I remember in one of the MG support groups that I was in recommended that I purchase a cooling vest. So it's basically like wearing a compressed or like a bulletproof vest or whatever over your body that's cool. And I think it serves people who will only be out in the heat for a short period of time, because once it melts, it's done, unfortunately. Then something else I found to be helpful, especially if you're going to places like amusement parks or where there's a lot of walking in heat and you get fatigued, electric scooter rental. Now I know a scooter, really, yes, a scooter. I know it's not the coolest thing to pull up to a social event on a scooter, and you might picture yourself looking like Dr. Nefario. If you guys don't know what that means or who that is, I just don't know what to say. It's from Despicable Me. Google it. But anyway, a scooter can literally be a lifesaver, you guys, because it'll allow you mobility and help preserve your energy. So just embrace it. Like, make it stylish. Pimp your scooter out. Um, I think as I grow in my journey, I'm less self-conscious and ashamed of some of the things, the tools and mobility aids that I need in order to get things done. Like if I'm having a flare up and I need to go grocery shopping, you best believe I'm getting that scooter cart and going to have a good time doing it, because it's fun, actually. Next, I would say is a misting fan. Um, if you're going to be somewhere where the AC isn't pumping, but it's not like hot, or maybe you're just at like an outdoor event like golf or soccer or some sporting event supporting your children, whatever. Having a fan that is not blowing hot air, because fans just circulate the air that's already there. You're going to need a fan that blows cool air and sprinkles a little mist of cool water, and it's going to be so refreshing. Like, you're going to feel like, oh, yes. So just think about how all the amusement parks have like those misting stations. That's because it works. And you'll have the advantage of having a personal one. I actually got one from Amazon. Yeah, and I like it. It definitely does the job. I have 2 of them, actually. One is handheld and one goes actually around my neck. And what else? So we talked about, oh yeah, just keeping it cool. Another thing that I got, my granny bought me this, is a cello. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a cello. She actually bought it a long time ago and I never used it. And I don't know if you guys are ever up long enough to see like those infomercials or as seen on TV ads, but I used my cello for the first time last summer, and it's pretty good. I have a hard time going to sleep in general, and when I'm hot, I'm definitely not going to sleep. But the cello did offer me some relief. I don't have like oh yeah, definitely get this, because for some people it may work better than others, but it's not pliable. I like a firm pillow, but I like to kind of melt into it, if that makes sense. I don't know. However, when you have that layer of coldness over top of your pillow, yes, it provides cool relief. However, it's not as flexible as a pillow you would want to go to sleep in, nor do you want to go to sleep with like your face on a pack of ice, so to speak. But there's also, you can do a makeshift one actually by putting just a regular cold compress in the freezer and covering with a pillowcase. But yeah, so those are some ideas. Also, if going outside isn't that important to you, stay inside. Man, my AC stay at a cool 67 degrees, and I know my electric bill suffers for it. But in the wintertime, I compensate because I'm not pumping my heat. So it's about an ebb and flow and a piece. But find yourself a good indoor hobby, okay? I love to paint and draw, and those are things that you can do while sitting down and remaining cool, So exploring your creative side and your DIY side and things that you can do indoors that bring you peace and that you can even invite friends into, like have a craft party, have a paint and sip. Like you don't have to, just because it's summer doesn't mean you have to be outside. So just think about that. And if you do have to go outside, I definitely recommend that you go after the sun sets. When the sun starts going down, that's when I'll start getting dressed and ready to go wherever I'm going. Because when that sun is up in high bloom, absolutely not. You won't see me. So those are just, a couple of different things that I do. And especially you just let your friends know, hey, if you want me to be there, it needs to be after 8 o'clock. Because you don't want to be out there caught in high noon sun, not only getting a tan, being uncomfortable, being hot, being sweaty, being ornery, because those are all things that can happen because you just didn't plan well. And the last tip that I have is actually changing your wardrobe in the summer. So I'll be following the wear less rule. Basically, loose, flowy, lightweight, and light colored garments have become a staple for me. And for me, that allows, sorry, tongue tied. That aligns with like my inner boho hippie thing that I'm trying to transition to anyway. But yes, those things allow breathability, allow air, so it's not like stuck to you. I've seen people out here in leather skirts during the summer, and I wonder why. But to each its own. I got like 4 or 5 dresses from Target this summer. They were like $20 each, and that's what I wear when I go to work. And they're just flowy and loose, and I feel very, very comfortable in them. And they're very, very like chic. They're not like moo-moos, even though I do love a good moo-moo when I'm in the house. So if you're looking for something that's cute, summery, flowy, so you still have that confidence, you're not thinking you're just in a sack, definitely check out there or shop for something that's more your style. But yes, you guys, that is all I have. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is definitely getting hot out here, and I am anxiously counting down the days until fall. Probably just me. But yes, thank you for tuning in, and until next week, be ill.